So it was December 6th. I'm not even going to try and do the maths. 20 something days till Boxing Day. Then it's a week after that for Speed Week. It's 27, 28 days or something like that until Pro Speedcar Week. You firstly got Brant Sprint Car Speed Week, and that dovetails perfectly in to the Pro Speedcar Week, which I'm super excited about. And so is my guest, Drake York. Now, I was thinking about this before, Drake. It's a very sophisticated name. It sounds like I should hear two people talking on the phone on Wall Street saying, I say, I'm going to visit my friend Drake York and we're going to bet on the stock market today. Yet you are as down home as all of us, mate, with a very sophisticated name.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I don't know if I think that's about the only sophisticated thing about me. I just like going racing, and I know that's not the most sophisticated thing in the world, but yeah, I mean, I just go racing all the time, and that's about as sophisticated as I get.
Well, you know me, mate. Sophistication is not actually my thing either. Mate, cool wall you got behind you. I particularly like the Stanton looking hot rod behind you.
Yeah, that's so. This is a car that my dad built. It's not original or anything, but it's a Ron Schumann and Gary Stan tribute to the house car. It was my dad's favorite car when he was a kid, growing up in the stands at Ascot and going to places like Manzanita. So that's him at Marysville Raceway out in California. And then behind me too, I got a bunch of pictures of him with wing cars, non-wing cars, all up and down the West Coast.
Yeah, that's so. Is that's where your passion for all this started? Was it your dad's dad as well, or did your dad start all this in the York fam?
So my grandpa raced. Unfortunately, I never got to meet my grandpa. So I don't really know much about before him, but I know he himself and his family all lived in Iowa, which I'm going to tie back to here in a second. But he had for the time, I don't remember the official name of the heart disease, but for the time, it was a pretty rare thing. And basically, the doctors in Iowa told him, like, hey, if you want to have a decent chance at a decent life, like, we suggest you go to Southern California. And then they got dusted up in the whole racing scene. So my grandpa owned sprint cars and raced sprint cars out at Ascot and Manzanita and Imperial Valley and all the places down in Southern California. So that's kind of where my dad got the bug. And then unfortunately, my grandfather passed when my dad was 16. And by then they had already moved up to Northern California. So that's where my mom and dad met. And that's where they had me. And yeah, I still remember going to Silver Dollar Speedway all the time to sit in the stands and watch my dad go race.
That is such a cool story. My grandpa, I would have called him my papa. He was the one that got, my family into the sport. He would drive from the farm to Claremont Speedway and he would take my dad and so, as a little kid, I went with my dad and my papa. It was like a three generational thing. And I kind of wish my papa died when I was 15. He died before I got into this from this point of view. So I kind of wish, that he would have been able to see, how immersed I am in this industry. Like your grandpa would have been incredibly proud of what you do, Drake.
Yeah, yeah, I like to think so. And I mentioned he was from Iowa. Well, in kind of a weird twist of fate, the first time I ever did a USAC sprint car race was in the state of Iowa. So that's something I hold near and dear. But yeah, it would have been cool too because the only thing my grandpa ever got to see my dad race was a quarter midget. They didn't do the whole quarter midget thing like a lot of kids of the era did. So by the time my dad got into stock cars like bombers and late models and modified a couple of times and then eventually non-wing and wing sprint cars, my grandpa was unfortunately long gone by then. So it would have been cool for him to obviously stick around and see what I'm doing, but it would have been cool for him to stick around and see what my dad was doing as well.
Drake, just the word USAC, it just has this magic, all about it, doesn't it? When you sort of have followed the history of it or not, you only have to say the word USAC when you attach it to any event, and it just has this incredible weight, doesn't it?
It really does. And see, we're coming off a time where we're just coming off the Turkey Night Grand Prix, the oldest midget race in the world, which my favorite stat when I come to Australia is the Victorian Speedcar title is the second oldest midget race in the world. But we talk about USAC and obviously Turkey Night's really big, the Indy 500, and what a lot of people don't know about USAC is they attach themselves to a lot of other things. Like one of the big things USAC has going on right now is their Porsche series, and they were involved with the SRX series back when that was a thing. So they're involved in a lot. And, it's funny, you can go all over the world and meet people that race in USAC, and they're not sprint car or midget people. They could be sports car people, or I believe they've had some off-road experience over the years too. So you can go anywhere in the world, and USAC means a lot, and particularly like where you and I are involved in midget racing. It's cool to see not only the, obviously the speed car and the non-wing sprint car people in Australia love it, but the wing people love it too. And yeah, it was cool to see how popular it was all the way over in Australia.
I know that New Zealand is a superpower, and I think you and I have talked about this before. Where, if I'm being honest, and we might have caught up a little bit more. It used to be America, New Zealand, Australia, kind of in the superpowers of it, and that's largely because of Pickens, because he's just a freak. We try to claim him sometimes. He races over here a lot more now as well, but everybody in New Zealand calls them midgets or mudgets, and in Australia, there's pockets of people that call them speed cars and call them midgets. And yet, most Americans, I think, understand that we do call them speed cars. Is there a great deal of pushback when you explain that to Americans about how we refer to them?
Um, I guess some in the older fans maybe a little bit, but like people that are maybe say like I'm 20, so maybe people in their 30s or maybe teenagers or even kids I talk to at the racetrack, they kind of like the name Speed Car, and obviously there's some political connotation to the midgets that's just not there, that people like to try to pick apart, which can be very frustrating. But yeah, speed car just has a cool sound to it. Like I feel like I could call my bicycle a speed car and it'd automatically be way cooler than it already is. So I kind of like the name. Like too, I was a little pushy back of it because I followed USAC midgets, whether it
Yeah.
was the national stuff or the West Coast or Chili Bowl or whatever it was, and I always knew them as midgets. But the speed car name, it's grown on me the last 2 or 3 years since I've been really really following Australian racing really closely.
I remember the first time seeing that was actually a gas station called Speedway, because for us that's what our whole sport is called. It's called Speedway, and yet I'll often hear Johnny Gibson and announcers refer to on the Speedway. Right now on the Speedway is, and yet we call the industry Speedway. So there's probably that difference as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I was funny enough, I was watching back some old races I did before the USAC stuff got started on the West Coast. I did a USAC CRA race, and then I did some outlaw kart races back home, and I'd say, oh, number five or somebody like that is spun out on the speedway. And it's funny too because I'm sure you've experienced this a lot too. You kind of have to change what you say, like compared to where you are. I'm sure you've experienced that many times, and that was kind of like my big cultural shock to Australians. Maybe I said things that were really not bad by any means, but that the Aussie fans weren't clear with. It's okay, Wade, because when I was a kid in California, Speedway wasn't a thing, and they are here in the Midwest. So I was just as shocked as you were.
You got to experience your first Pro Speed Car week last year, and the very first one was at Murray Bridge, which is a cracking speed car track. Like it's just the shape of it, the natural amphitheater of it. It's one of my favorite places, and this year it's the home of the Australian Sprint Car Championship as well. What do you recall about Pro Speed Car week last year and your first impressions of even say the first night?
Well, it was definitely different. I mean, I tell people this all the time, and it's not a knock on American midget racing, but usually the combo is a spike or a link chassis with a Toyota or standard. Sometimes there's guys like Carson Macedo, one with a King chassis, and Jerome Rodella's outfit with Tom Malloy. I mean, they have King chassis, and there's a couple people that mix it up, but usually where you want to be on the engine side of things is a Speedway Toyota or a Stan SR11X. In Australia, I feel like it's almost like how midget racing was like 10 years ago. Like Brendan Zadow had a Mopar and was running like third with a couple laps to go till he had a motor issue at Murray Bridge. And then, you still have guys like Caden Brown, who obviously won Pro Speed Car Week last year, and Nash too with a Stan SR11X. But there just felt like there was more wiggle room with the motor. Like we saw Esslingers be quick. We talked about the Mopar we saw was really quick. And as your usual suspects with motors, but it felt kind of like midget racing of like 10 or so years ago. And I get reminded of this every year, especially when we go out to California. But obviously we have Keith Coons and we have Chad Bode and Paul Silva's outfit with Kyle Larson and Tyler Court, like super teams. But this kind of just felt like small scale, and it felt homegrown in all the right ways. So yeah, it kind of reminded me of watching USAC midget racing on TV when I was a kid. It was just kind of a couple of big teams against a lot of really small teams that could, punch their weight. So I really like Australian midget racing for that perspective alone, because it's kind of captures all the right things of midget racing from like 10 or so years ago, I would say.
Look, I think I like the way you describe that because by no means are you saying that Australian racing is not competitive, it is not invested and all those sort of things. It's just a different pit environment, really. It really comes back to the pit environment because the racing is just as intense. The passion for the cars, when you are a speed car guy or a midget guy, you are all in. Like you might occasionally watch a sprint car race, but you would much rather watch one without the roof on, like that one behind you, than you would with a wing. So there's definitely been that compartmentalization of it. Drake, how is the sport going with the cost of racing? That's probably one of the things that's the hardest to sell to get new talent into in Australia is the motors in particular are a particularly expensive way to go racing for midget and speed car racing. How have you seen that over there?
Like I said, you got to have a Toyota stand I feel if you really want to be competitive. I haven't tried to buy a Toyota stand really recently, so I can't give you an accurate price, but I know those things aren't cheap. And, it's kind of where like we see the disconnect between Australia and America in terms of like the types of teams you see. In Australia, obviously you guys are a lot closer to Esslinger. Those are still good motors, they're still affordable and all that good stuff in the right way. But yeah, that I think that's kind of where we see the disconnect because there are some local teams, out in California that don't have the money for a stand or a Toyota. So it's hard for them to be competitive with the national stuff. But like we talked about, we had cars from Western Australia, we had drivers from New Zealand, we had, really drivers all the way from either coast of Australia in Pro Speed Car Week, and everybody was competitive. That was the part I took away. Like everyone was competitive, and they all had different stuff. So yeah, it's definitely hard to get into midget racing. I can tell you what it costs to get to Australia because I just did that, but you know how it is, Wade. Everything today is really expensive no matter where you go.
The cool thing for you is that our exchange rate sucks. So you're in a good position, at least when you change over the greenbacks onto the pineapples, mate. You're doing quite okay, and I'm sure you've done the research on that much. Let's talk about the schedule for Pro Speedcar Week. I'm thrilled that you're coming back to be part of it this year. I really enjoyed working with you last year, and the flavor and the background and the understanding, the deeper understanding of the sport that you bring to it. We're going to kick things off this year on December 1, January 1, I can say at the final round of Sprint Car Speed Week. We're having the launch of the series in Warrnambool, which I think is appropriate because we'll, of course, get to be back there. But Portland is a track that I think you would remember pretty well. It had a footy oval right next to it. There's not too many speedways in Australia that have a football oval right next to there.
I don't think there's that many tracks in America either. It was unique, and I actually found some highlights of that the other day, kind of getting ready for this Pro Speed Car Week because midget racing, especially in Portland's a little far and few between. But that was a really fun race last year. As a fan, my favorite types of races to watch is watching the track go through a massive swing. Who not only is the best at adapting behind the wheel, but it's the guys on the wrenches too that really play a big part of winning in those races. And last year, Portland, it was kind of ring around the rosy on the top for a while. And then
Yeah,
I believe it was Robert Hurd kind of found the gutter before
yeah,
anybody else, and he started charging. And man, I like I said, I was watching that race the other day, and I felt like the Robert Hurd's grief again, seeing that yellow come out with like 5 or so to go because he was
yeah.
probably going to win that race before everyone figured out the bottom. But yeah, I really liked that track last year, and it's just a cool environment. I mean, I know most of your tracks are near the ocean, so it's not really a novelty for you guys as much as it is for me. But I think it was, I'm going to use an American word here. I think it was like 3 or 4 miles away from the ocean. Like it felt like I was right there. So, yeah, that's kind of why I like going to Australia. You're on the beach all the time. It's super cool. But yeah,
It's
I'm really excited to get to Portland.
not quite
It's not
Ventura though.
quite, but
Not quite Ventura.
no. It's funny you should mention that because I was showing my mom Perth because I'm going to go to Perth just to watch
Yeah,
for WA Speed Week, and then I'll watch a couple nights of High Limit, and then I'll head back to Victoria. And I was showing her, I'm like, wow, look, it's right there. She's been to Ventura almost as many times as me now. And she's like, yeah, but it's not Ventura. I'm like, there is no other Ventura, but it's cool.
no.
I do like, yeah, Portland was cool. I was with Andy Pierce pretty much all of Pro Speed Car Week last year. We went to the beach, and then like I looked up after a couple minutes on the road and we're at the racetrack. Like that's just what it's like racing over there. So I'm really excited to get to Portland as well as Borderline and Simpson and Warrnambool.
So Borderline is an epic place. I'm really excited. That is the third round of our Brant Sprint Car Speed Week. It's our second round of Pro Speed Car Week. It is a wicked little place, and it's so beautifully presented. The spectator lawn, the whole way around the circuit. There's not so many gum trees as there used to be around the grounds. It used to be right through the pits, but the soup, the steak sandwiches, the culture around Borderline Speedway is fantastic, and it is a ripping speed car track. So I cannot wait to get there for round two. That will be on January 3. We then head to Heytesbury Stockfeeds Simpson Speedway. There's the Aussie salute thing going on there, which you'd be used to, where you're always flicking off the flies. But that is a really cool little avocado-shaped track. And if I remember rightly, Caleb Mills had a monster wreck there, unfortunately, last year and tore the car up pretty bad.
Yeah, that was a big one, as we say in America. That one, yeah, he and I forget who it was he was racing with down the backstretch. But you talk about the avocado, it was literally just a narrowing effect. But yeah, it's that was the first place I ever went to in Australia. Tom Hobson, uh, poor guy was my babysitter like the whole time I was there last year because I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing. So I fly in and he took me to Simpson and we watched a wing race and then got to come back for the speed car deal. And yeah, that place is so fun. I mean, there's a lot of tracks in America too where they're symmetrical, but one end race is a lot different than the other. Both ends are polar opposites almost,
Yeah.
and you'll see a curve at both ends for sure. And it got nice and slick, and it was funny last year too. I remember us talking about there might be rubber on the bottom, and then Caden Brown absolutely smoked the fence last couple laps, and he pulled away from everybody. So you never know what you're going to get at Simpson, but that's quickly become one of my favorites over there. And yeah, we'll be Aussie saluting a lot.
Caden Brown is such a rare talent. I'm so excited to see where his career is headed. Let's talk about Premier Speedway Warrnambool, which you have plenty of experience at now because you got to experience a number of major events there. It too is a fantastic speed car track. It can bite you in a speed car because it's very fast. You really get some momentum going at that place. But what an amazing place to be the finale for that. It's such an incredible place. Remember, the rain kind of messed us up on that one last year. So I'm truly excited to see what we can come up with this year.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see. I mean, obviously, speed cars don't race there all the time. So, trust me, I've spent a lot of time scouring the internet, even last year, just trying to find old footage of races. But kind of what I've gone off of watching the old speed car races there, and even going there for, I went there for Speed Week last year. I was there at the Classic, and then, as you mentioned, I worked the Aussie Sprint Car title. It's kind of like a little Eldora. Just kind of that's the vibe I get standing on the infield or even outside the racetrack. Like the way the wing cars handle there, or how the non-wing sprint cars go there. It kind of reminds me of Eldora, just the way the cars act and how they sit on the racetrack and how you have to pass and how you have to maneuver around each other. So yeah, I'm very curious. And like you said, it seems like a place. I mean, obviously, we can go out there in bicycles tomorrow, Wade, and we'd be hauling the mail around there. Like that's just the type of place it is. It's super tiny, but it's super fast. So it's as Justin Grant would say, it's going to be high stakes racing at Warrnambool once we get there for Pro Speed Car Week.
You would have been keeping up with T-Mez, I'm sure, and his Australian exploits down here recently. And Drake, you're going to be on the wrong side of the country. You're going to miss Tolma, that the I-55 in Australia. That has to be making you lick your lips because you know what Peevely is like. When you talk about mini Eldora, well, Tolma is going to be spectacular.
Yeah, I saw Tolmer's got a show right before Aussie Sprint Car title, and from where I'm based out of with the Temby and Hobson family in Victoria, it's like an 8 hour drive. But then I saw that Tolmer was having a race heading into the title. I'm like, man, that's gonna be hard to say no to. So I'm currently trying to find funds and all this other stuff to at least go down there because I mean we were just talking about Murray Bridge is a spectacle on its own. That's one of my favorite racetracks, and
Yeah.
I just caught up with the Super 8 weekend today, actually watching on Clay Per View, which I believe will have a couple of our Pro Speed Car Week races. And
Correct.
man, that was such a good week for the Super 8. So I'm awfully tempted to get there for the Aussie Sprint Car title. Still working on it, but yeah, I'm gonna try to make it. And yeah, Tolmer's definitely got me licking my lips.
Maybe next year, 2025, 26, maybe we can get around at Tolma. So just checking in once more, Drake is going to be down. We're going to be announcing together for the Pro Speed Car Week. They're going to release the drivers pretty soon. I know that Katie and Andy and Squizzy and Lee and everybody's working really hard on making this another very, very special event. They've got some great teams. I've seen some of the names, particularly out of the West. Ooh, there's some fast cars coming as well. Plus the possibility of someone from your part of the planet. Can't 100% confirm that, but there's rumors getting around. What are you going to be most excited about that's non-racing? What's the bit you can't? Is there a food that you've missed?
That's a good question. I think it's like more authentic Vegemite is what I'm excited for because
Authentic Vegemite.
like yeah, well, I say authentic in terms of like the bread and the butter
Yeah.
because our bread here, I
Yes.
Todd Hobson's a health nut and he was telling me our bread is like cake and like he just ruined
Yes.
I didn't think it was possible to ruin bread, but he ruined bread for me. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to get like real butter, real bread, Vegemite, chicken salt and fries too. I just had a friend text me a couple minutes ago, like, hey, we're having chicken salt in our fries. So I mean, that's the other thing too, is like Australia, like for any Americans thinking about going, just know ahead of time it's gonna ruin all American foods for you because it's so healthy, but it's like really good too at the same time. Like it doesn't feel like you're eating healthy. So yeah, it's all of it to answer your question. I'm looking forward to all of it. Mostly Warrnambool, let's see. I'm looking forward to Sun Gold Milk at Warrnambool.
Yep.
And then I think you guys call it a pasty. It's like a little
Pasty.
roll.
Pasty
Yeah,
roll.
those I like those. Yeah, I
Yep.
like those a lot. Those are good. So I like everything down there, which is why I probably gained like 10 pounds when I was there.
Mate, it's very hard to tell on you. You're a stick figure at the best of times. You're right. Your bread is very sweet in America. That's what messes up Vegemite. It doesn't make sense because bread is very sweet in the States. What date do you get in, Drake?
So first I'm flying into Perth on Boxing Day, gonna hit the racetrack that night or gonna head to the racetrack. We were talking off recording, I guess, with about Fat Rat. So I'm gonna go down there and hang out with Fat Rat through Boxing Day and then High Limit, and then I'll come back to Victoria, and I think I'll be at Warrnambool just to hang out and watch your Speed Week, and I'm excited about that because I love Warrnambool. So, and then it'll be on the road with Pro Speedcar Week, and I don't think it's going to stop much from there, which is kind of like how I like to keep it out there.
Are you going to miss Christmas Day? Are you going to be in the air over Christmas?
I am. My dad's not overly thrilled about it, but yeah, he's not exactly thrilled about it. But Boxing Day, like it's not a thing here in America at all. And you know, again, talking about Fat Rat, I told him I try to have as many cultural experiences as I can,
Oh,
and I
wow.
call Fat Rat a cultural experience.
Yep.
But yeah, like I kind of want to see what that's like because you guys seem to make it's almost bigger than Christmas over there, so I kind of
Yeah,
want
it
to see what
is.
that's like and yeah, we kind of want to see what it's like to go racing on Boxing Day. So, yeah, unfortunately, I'll be in the air during Christmas, but I'll catch up when I land.
That is commitment. That's what we love about you, Drake. Committed to the art. Looking forward to catching up with you when you get here around the end of that Brant Sprint Car Speed Week, which morphs perfectly into the launch on January 1 for Pro Speed Car Week for us to race the next night at Portland. Then we head to Borderline Speedway Mount Gambier, then to Heytesbury Stockfeeds Simpson Speedway, and then back to Premier Speedway Warrnambool for the finale of Pro Speed Car Week. It's going to be epic. I would say to you, have a great Christmas. I'm sure that your family's going to make sure you have a mini Christmas before you go, right?
Yeah, I think we're doing it on like the 23rd or something like that. So, yeah, I got still got a lot of stuff going on here in the U.S. and got PRI show and Buddy and I are going to hit the Dome on Saturday. So that, like I said, Wade, even if you're from America, you want as many cultural experiences as you can. So the Dome's going to be one, and then yeah, PRI, and then it's going to be full load up mode to get down to Australia.
I can't wait, mate. You're going to have an epic lead up to Christmas. It's all about you, Drake. Your family be going, it's all about Drake. We have to have Christmas on the 23rd of freaking December because our kid wants to go the other side of the world and eat Vegemite on real bread, an authentic real bread.
That's literally the same conversation I had like 20 minutes ago.
I'm looking forward to seeing you, mate. Enjoy, be safe. And I want to remind everybody, too, when we get this chance to talk, Drake, to look after your friends and family because this can be a time of extreme contrast for people. Not everybody sees the beauty and the family aspect of Christmas. A lot of people are on their own. It brings up a lot of experiences when they're experiencing Christmas for the first time without someone really special in their life. And so just want to encourage everyone to reach out to their friends and family and make sure that they ask, "Are you okay?" I will see you in a few weeks' time, mate. Pro Speed Car Week, get around. It's going to be huge.
Yep, you got it, Wade. And like you said, check in on your friends and family and make sure they're all right. Because, like you said, holidays can be a rough time for sure. But yeah, I'm really excited. I've literally been planning this next Australia trip about, I think I started planning like maybe a month after I got home. So I've been looking forward to the second one even more than the first.